Welcome back to Kuma English Listening Hub. In today's episode, we are stepping into one of the most sensitive and frankly explosive areas of British public life: welfare, work, and what it means to raise a family in a country that cannot quite decide how it feels about the so-called dole. Our guiding question is deliberately provocative. With 5 children, should I go on the dole? Behind that question sits a whole tangle of issues: social class, media narratives, political ideology, cultural expectations about parenting, and the everyday reality of making ends meet when the numbers simply do not add up. As always, you will hear sophisticated British English, a mixture of formal analysis and informal turns of phrase, not unlike a BBC Radio 4 documentary that occasionally wanders into the pub for a chat. So, put the kettle on, get yourself properly settled, and let's begin. Let us start with the phrase itself, the dole. In official government language, we talk about welfare benefits, universal credit, or income support. But in everyday British English, the dole is the traditional informal term for unemployment benefit. It carries a lot of cultural baggage. For some people, it simply means the safety net you use when you lose your job. For others, it suggests idleness, dependency, or even moral failure. Already, we are in trouble, linguistically speaking. If one person says, "I had to go on the dole for 6 months after I was made redundant," most listeners will think, fair enough, that is just bad luck. If another person says, "She has been on the dole for years," the tone changes completely. The same word, the dole, now hints at something rather less sympathetic. This is where our question becomes interesting. Imagine, then, a parent in Britain today with 5 children. They are exhausted, slightly knackered most of the time, juggling school runs, laundry, packed lunches, part-time work, and the constant low-level panic of rising prices. Rent has gone up, childcare is extortionate, and every time they think they have their finances sorted, the gas bill arrives and ruins the illusion. They may well be working already, perhaps on a 0-hours contract, in a supermarket, a care home, or a warehouse. The work is tiring, the hours are unpredictable, and the pay is barely enough to cover the basics. At some point, this parent might sit at the kitchen table late at night, with a cheap calculator and a cup of tea that has gone cold, and think, would it actually be more rational to stop working and rely on benefits? With 5 children, is the system set up in such a way that the dole becomes, if not attractive, then at least the least bad option? Blimey, that is a grim calculation to have to make. Before we rush to judge, we need to understand how the conversation about welfare works in Britain. For decades, certain tabloid newspapers have pushed a very particular story: the benefit scrounger. The stereotype is familiar: someone who cannot be bothered to work, who has lots of children in order to claim more money, who lives in a council house paid for by the taxpayer, and who somehow always has the latest phone and a massive television. You will have seen headlines along the lines of "Mama 5 on benefits refuses job offer," or "Benefits family rakes in more than hard-working couple next door." The implication is clear: there are people who are, supposedly, gaming the system. And the rest of us, the proper hard-working majority, are footing the bill. This narrative is powerful, emotionally speaking, because it taps into a deep sense of fairness, or perhaps unfairness. Many Britons are, quite understandably, keen on the idea that effort should be rewarded and laziness should not. The trouble is that real lives are considerably messier than those newspaper stories suggest. So, back to our parent with 5 children. From one angle, they might be presented as irresponsible. "Why did you have so many kids if you could not afford them?" someone might ask, perhaps in the comments section under a news article, perhaps after a pint too many down the pub. From another angle, they might be seen as heroic, raising a large family in a cost of living crisis, trying their best to keep everyone clothed, fed, and vaguely cheerful. The question, "Should I go on the dole?" is, for them, not a philosophical puzzle, but a brutally practical one. It is about whether there will be food in the fridge at the end of the month. Here we hit a particularly British contradiction. On the one hand, the UK likes to think of itself as a compassionate society with a proper welfare state: the NHS, child benefit, social housing, and so on. On the other hand, there is a strong tradition of suspicion towards anyone perceived to be on the take. We admire the underdog, but we also have a sharp nose for what we consider to be taking liberties. At this point, you might be wondering, is the system actually generous enough to make not working financially attractive for someone with 5 children? The honest answer is, It depends, and it is more complicated than most headlines suggest. Housing costs, local wages, childcare availability, and the exact configuration of benefits all play a role. In some high-rent areas, for example, housing benefit may cover a large proportion of the rent, but the total household income can still be painfully tight. In many cases, low-paid work does not lift a family dramatically above benefit levels once you subtract childcare fees, commuting costs, and the loss of certain entitlements. This is what economists sometimes call the poverty trap, the situation in which earning a bit more money leaves you only marginally better off in practice, or in extreme cases, no better off at all. From a cold, rational point of view, staying on benefits might appear almost spot on as a financial strategy, even if emotionally it feels uncomfortable. For a parent who prides themselves on being independent and who has been told since childhood that going on the dole is something you simply do not do unless things have gone badly wrong, this can be a source of deep shame. Let us bring in another British cultural reference: the television documentary. Over the last decade, there has been a whole genre of so-called poverty porn documentaries, set on council estates, following families on low incomes, often with large numbers of children. Programs with titles like Benefit Street invite viewers to sit in judgment from the comfort of their sofas. The editing can be rather selective. Arguments, bad decisions, and chaotic households make for dramatic television. Quiet, careful budgeting, and people doing their best on limited incomes are, frankly, slightly boring to watch. The result is a distorted picture. The loudest, most dysfunctional households become symbolic of the dole as a whole. For our imaginary parent with 5 children, this means that their private dilemma becomes part of a national morality play. If they do decide to claim benefits, they know perfectly well that some neighbors, relatives, or anonymous strangers online will see them as part of that lot from the telly. No wonder the question, should I go on the dole, is not just financial but deeply psychological. Now, from a more analytical point of view, we can frame the issue in terms of 3 competing values: responsibility, solidarity, and dignity. Responsibility is about the individual. Did you think ahead before having a large family? Are you doing everything you reasonably can to work and contribute? Solidarity is about the community. Do we, as a society, accept that sometimes people need collective support, especially when children are involved, and that leaving them to sink or swim is simply not acceptable? Dignity is about how that support is provided. Are benefits enough to live on, or merely to survive on? Are claimants treated as citizens with rights, or as suspects who must constantly prove they are not cheating the system? In Britain, these 3 values are in constant tension. Politicians talk about hardworking families on the one hand and welfare dependency on the other, trying to sound both compassionate and tough. Policies are adjusted, tightened, relaxed, and tightened again as governments respond to economic pressure and public opinion. Meanwhile, our parent with 5 children is still at the kitchen table staring at the numbers. Let us listen in for a moment to what that inner monologue might sound like. It is not as if I am keen on sitting at home doing nothing. I am up at 6 sorting packed lunches. The little one still wakes in the night. By the time everyone is in bed, I am absolutely knackered. And then I have to check whether the rent has gone out properly and whether there is enough for school shoes next month. My mate keeps saying, just go on the dole, it will be easier. And part of me thinks, fair enough. Why am I running myself ragged for an extra 50 quid a month, if that? But then I hear my mom's voice in my head. You do not go on benefits unless you absolutely have to. And anyway, people talk. You know what the street is like. One minute it is, oh, she is doing her best, good on her, and the next it is, she is milking it, 5 kids and living off the state. You cannot win. This kind of internal debate is, in many ways, more revealing than any politician's speech. It shows how public narratives become private guilt. For advanced learners of English, this topic offers a rich opportunity to practice nuanced argument. You can talk about economics, yes, but also about values, identity, and stigma. You can acknowledge that some people do take advantage of the system while also insisting that most do not. You can criticize certain tabloid headlines without pretending that welfare policy is simple or that resources are unlimited. At C2 level, you are expected to manage exactly this sort of balanced, layered discussion, recognizing emotional undercurrents while still keeping your argument logically coherent. Notice, for example, how a single informal word like mate can soften a difficult conversation. Someone might say, look, mate, with 5 kids and rents like this, I cannot blame you for going on the dole, signaling empathy rather than condemnation. Equally, a phrase like fair enough can be used to acknowledge a point you disagree with politely. Fair enough. Some people do abuse the system, but most claimants are just trying to keep their heads above water. These little expressions carry a lot of pragmatic weight in British English. They allow speakers to step back slightly from direct confrontation and maintain a tone that is serious but not aggressive. Let us draw together some of the key language from this episode. Dole, informal term for unemployment benefits, often loaded with cultural and moral associations. Benefits, scrounger, a highly critical expression describing someone perceived to be exploiting welfare. It is emotionally charged and often used in tabloid rhetoric. Poverty trap, a situation in which earning more money does not significantly improve living standards because of the way taxes and benefits interact. Cost of a living crisis, the current period in which prices for essentials such as food, housing, and energy are rising faster than incomes. Safety net, a metaphor for the minimum level of support a society provides to protect people from extreme hardship. Stigma, strong social disapproval attached to a particular behavior or status. Now, a few very British expressions and idioms that have been threaded through our discussion. Spot on, exactly right, or accurate. Brilliant, excellent, or used ironically in response to bad news. Proper, genuine, serious, or done in a thorough way. Keen on, enthusiastic about, or supportive of something. Fair enough, a way of conceding that something is reasonable, even if you do not fully agree. Sorted, organized, resolved, or under control. Knackered, extremely tired. Mate, informal term for friend, or the person you are addressing. Blimey, mild expression of surprise. Cheers, informal thanks, or a friendly way to say goodbye. Try building your own sentences that mix the emotional and the analytical. For example, the documentary made it look as if everyone on the estate was on the take, which was not spot on at all. In reality, most people were just trying to get their lives sorted in the middle of a proper cost of living crisis. So, with all this in mind, how might we respond to the original question? With 5 children, should I go on the dole? From a purely financial perspective, the answer might be, it depends on your local job market, your housing costs, and your childcare options. In some circumstances, benefits may be the least disastrous option. From an ethical perspective, one could argue that no parent should be forced to choose between poverty in work and poverty on benefits. A society that finds itself in that position might reasonably ask whether the system is working as intended. From a cultural perspective, we might suggest that Britain needs a more honest, less sensationalist conversation about welfare. One that avoids painting all claimants as scroungers, but also does not pretend that difficult trade-offs do not exist. Perhaps the most humane answer is this. If claiming benefits allows your children to be fed, housed, and properly looked after, while you continue to do what you can to contribute, then the decision is not one of moral failure, but of responsible parenting in a flawed system. You may not feel brilliant about it. You may worry about what the neighbors will say. But survival is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Before we finish, here are a few reflection questions you can use to push your English towards a genuinely C2 level. 1. In your country, how are people who receive welfare benefits portrayed in the media? Is there an equivalent to the British benefit scrounger stereotype? 2. Do you think large families should receive more financial support from the state, less, or about the same as smaller families? Why? Sen, where in your view is the line between legitimate social support and unhealthy dependency? 4. How might the language we use, such as the dole versus social security, influence public attitudes towards welfare? 5. If you were advising our imaginary parent with 5 children, what would you say to them, and how would you choose your words to be both honest and compassionate? You have reached the end of this episode of Kuma English Listening Hub. Today, we explored the deceptively simple question, with 5 children, should I go on the dole? And uncovered a much wider conversation about class, media narratives, economic structures, and the way British English encodes judgment and empathy in tiny, everyday phrases. We have seen that a single decision at a kitchen table late at night can reflect national anxieties about fairness, work, and responsibility. We have also used that decision as a doorway into advanced vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, and the subtle tone shifts that characterize educated British speech. If your brain feels slightly knackered after all that, fair enough. It means you have been working at a properly high level. If you found this episode helpful, do consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a mate who is also aiming for C2 English. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and remember, behind every headline about the Dole, there is a real person doing their best to get things sorted. Cheers from Kuma English Listening Hub.